In the lively heart of Lagos, where the air is thick with the mouth-watering aromas of sizzling suya from roadside grills, fried plantain chips, and fresh akra bubbling in palm oil, a young couple named Chidi and Adora Okonkwo were making their way through life. You can practically taste the energy in the air, right? The sounds of honking Okadas weaving through the bustling traffic create a soundtrack that's uniquely Lagos. And amidst all that chaos, Chidi and Adora stand out. Not because they're famous or anything, but because they're just two determined souls navigating the vibrant pulse of Nigeria's economic capital with grit and heart. Chidi, a tall, broad-shouldered guy in his mid-30s, has this neatly trimmed beard that gives him a thoughtful vibe, almost like a professor. He's got that look of someone who's always analyzing the world around him. By day, he's a civil engineer working for a solid construction firm on Victoria Island. Picture him on those dusty sites, overseeing the construction of mid-rise office blocks, luxury apartments, and the occasional bridge project aimed at easing Lagos's infamous traffic jams. He wears hard hats and safety boots, shouting instructions over the roar of bulldozers, and comes home with the faint scent of cement dust lingering on his clothes. His paycheck is decent, enough to cover school fees, groceries from ShopRite, and maybe a treat at a local buka, but it doesn't come easy. Chidi works hard for every kobo, and you can feel that hustle in his bones. Now, Adora, his wife, is the perfect partner, sharp-minded, quick to laugh, and super organized. She studied accounting at the University of Lagos and now freelances from a cozy home office, balancing the books for small and medium-sized businesses all over the city. She's got clients ranging from textile traders in Balagan Market to tech startups in Yaba and restaurants in Surulere. Sometimes, she works late into the night, her laptop screen glowing while the kids sleep, making sure every kobo is accounted for. Her income is steady, reliable, and all hers. They aren't poor, far from it. Their three-bedroom apartment in Ikeja GRA, which later got upgraded to a spacious mansion in Lekki, is filled with all the comforts of middle-class life. Imagine a generator that roars to life during NEPA outages, a deep freezer stocked with chicken and fish, air conditioners humming in every room, and a Toyota Camry parked in the compound. But in Lagos, where wealth is often measured in billions or nothing at all, they're simply trying, a term Nigerians use with pride to describe those hustling daily, refusing to sit idle when easier paths exist. And trust me, an easier path definitely existed. Every month, without fail, sizable allowances land in their bank accounts. Transfers from both sets of parents that could have funded private jets, designer wardrobes, or a life of leisure. But Chidi and Adora made a promise long before marriage, back when they were university sweethearts stealing kisses under the neem trees on campus. They were going to build their own future. They didn't want to rely on inherited wealth. They wanted to stand tall on their own feet, proving to themselves and the world that love, hard work, and discipline could create something lasting. It wasn't that they rejected their families. They were proud of where they came from. But with pride came responsibility. Chidi often said, "My father built his empire from nothing. If I live off it without adding my own brick, what example do I set for our kids?" Adora would nod and add, "We want our story to be ours, not just an appendix to someone else's success." So they saved. They budgeted. They turned down offers of luxury cars and overseas shopping sprees. They attended weddings in stylish Ankara outfits made by local tailors instead of fancy imported lace. They shopped at markets, haggled with mama-put vendors, and celebrated small wins, like landing a big engineering contract or a new accounting client, with a quiet dinner of pepper soup and star beer. Their home was filled with love, laughter, and the gentle rhythm of a life lived intentionally. Photos of their wedding day lined the walls. A beautiful ceremony at a cathedral in Lagos, followed by a reception where jollof rice flowed freely and high-life music kept guests dancing till dawn. In those pictures, they looked young, hopeful, and certain of their simple dream. One child, one home, one future built together. But life had a surprise in store for them. Little did they know that the humble beginnings they cherished so fiercely were just the calm before the storm of 8 tiny miracles that would change their lives forever. Chidi and Adora Okonkwo didn't come from ordinary families. Their roots dug deep into Nigeria's post-independence success stories, starting with nothing but ambition, faith, and a refusal to accept the limits others placed on them. On Chidi's side was Chief Emeka Okonkwo, a towering figure in both stature and reputation. Born in a small village near Onitsha in the 1950s, Chief Emeka left school early to learn the ropes of the spare parts trade along the bustling banks of the Niger. With sharp instincts, he saved every kobo and eventually branched out into importing heavy machinery during Nigeria's oil boom in the 1970s. By the time structural adjustment policies shook the economy in the 1980s, he had already pivoted into oil and gas. He secured local partnerships with foreign multinationals, won service contracts for offshore rigs, and built a fleet of supply vessels that navigated the waters of the Niger Delta. Today, Okonkwo Energy is a household name in the industry, with stakes in exploration blocks, pipelines, and even a small refinery in Port Harcourt. Forbes Africa has listed him among Nigeria's top 20 richest men multiple times, and his name opens doors in Aso Rock as easily as it does in Houston or London. But those who knew him best remembered the man who still attended village meetings back home, distributing scholarships and boreholes without making a fuss. His wife, Lady Ngozi Okonkwo, was no less impressive. Tall, elegant, and always impeccably dressed in custom-made lace or flowing gowns, she took a modest inheritance from her own trading family and turned it into a hospitality empire. Starting with one boutique hotel in Abuja in the early 1990s, she expanded steadily across West Africa, luxury properties in Accra, Dakar, Abidjan, and a flagship five-star resort on the Lagos shoreline that hosted presidents, musicians, and international conferences. Her hotels were known for flawless service, stunning interiors blending African art with modern design, and a quiet insistence on excellence that mirrored her personality. She sat on boards, chaired foundations for women's education, and was often called upon to mediate disputes among Nigeria's elite because her word carried weight and her judgment was trusted. Adaora's parents were equally impressive, though their wealth wore a quieter, more intellectual face. Her father, Dr. Obi Nwosu, was one of Nigeria's top cardiothoracic surgeons. Trained in the UK during the 1970s, he returned to establish the first private heart center in West Africa, located in Ikoyi. Over decades, he built Nwosu Medical Group into a chain of specialist hospitals in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt, offering services that rivaled anything in Europe or America. Politicians, business moguls, and even foreign dignitaries flew in for his expertise. He published papers, lectured internationally, and trained a generation of Nigerian surgeons, all while maintaining a calm, scholarly demeanor that made patients feel safe in his hands. His wife, Chief Mrs. Ezenwosu, was the vibrant force behind one of Nigeria's most successful luxury import businesses. Specializing in high-end fabrics, Swiss voile, French lace, Italian silks, and exclusive jewelry lines from Paris and Dubai, she supplied the wardrobes of senators' wives, governors' daughters, and Nollywood stars preparing for the AMVCA red carpet. Her showrooms in Victoria Island and Abuja were appointment-only havens of elegance, where clients sipped champagne while browsing fabrics worth hundreds of thousands of naira per yard. Ezen traveled the world for trade fairs, negotiated directly with designers in Europe, and built a distribution network that reached boutiques from Accra to Johannesburg. She was known for her impeccable taste, her generosity to charitable causes, and her ability to spot trends before they arrived. When Chidi and Adora decided to marry, their union was celebrated as a merger of two dynasties. The traditional wedding in Adora's village drew thousands, canopies stretching across fields, masquerades dancing, and cows slaughtered in celebration. The white wedding at the Cathedral Church of Christ in Marina was officiated by bishops, with a reception at Eco Hotel's Grand Ballroom, featuring live performances by Flavor and Tiwa Savage. Governors sent representatives, ministers called to congratulate, and social media buzzed for weeks with photos under the hashtag Okonkwo wedding. Yet, amid all the splendor, Chidi and Adora held tight to their private vow. As they danced their first dance to a slow highlife track, Chidi whispered into Adora's ear, "All this is beautiful, but our life will be ours. We will work. We will build. We won't forget where effort takes us." And that promise was the bedrock of their relationship, a commitment to each other and their dreams. They envisioned a future where their children would inherit not just wealth, but a legacy of hard work, resilience, and the values that shaped them. As the years went by, they faced challenges that tested their resolve. The hustle of Lagos was relentless, and the demands of their careers sometimes felt overwhelming. There were days when Adora smiled, pressing her cheek against Chitty's, the warmth between them radiating a kind of magic that felt almost palpable. There was something about that moment, just the two of them, wrapped up in their little world, dreaming about what the future could hold. "One child," she whispered back, her eyes sparkling with dreams, each word filled with hope. "Maybe two," he replied, a grin breaking across his face, his excitement contagious. "A simple home. A story we write ourselves," she added, her voice filled with conviction. Their parents, proud yet a bit puzzled, respected the young couple's determination, at least on the surface. You could almost see the raised eyebrows when they talked about their plans. They kept sending those hefty monthly allowances labeled upkeep or family support, enough to buy houses in Lekki or splurge on luxury cars every year. But Chitty and Adora, they were smart about it. Most of that money went straight into savings, using only what they absolutely needed for emergencies, living off their own hard-earned cash. They knew the world saw them as heirs to empires, but honestly, they wanted more than just inheritance. They craved identity, character, something real. The quiet joy of knowing that whatever they passed to their kids would carry the weight of personal sacrifice, not just privilege. It was a refreshing perspective in a world that often equated wealth with worth. Little did they know, destiny was about to bless them in a way no amount of money could buy, and shake up every carefully laid plan they had for a simple, self-made life. The joyful surprise. It was a scorching afternoon in March, the kind of Lagos heat that made the air shimmer above the asphalt, turning every short walk into a sweat test. Adora had just returned from a client meeting in Surulere, her Ankara blouse sticking to her skin despite the AC blasting in the Uber. You know that feeling when the heat just wraps around you like a blanket? That was her right then. She felt unusually drained. Not the typical exhaustion from juggling spreadsheets and school runs. By then, they had a nanny helping out, but a deep, bone-weary fatigue that had lingered for weeks. It was the kind of tired that made you question everything, Her appetite had shifted too, sudden cravings for sour things. Lime, unripe mango, even tamarind straight from the pod. And then there was this quiet aversion to the strong perfume she usually adored. At first, she brushed it off. "It's just the harmattan dust still hanging around," she told Chitty one evening as they sat in their Acadia apartment, the ceiling fan whirring above them like a comforting lullaby. "Or maybe I'm coming down with malaria again." But when her period, always on time, was 2 weeks late, a tiny seed of suspicion took root. She discreetly bought a test kit from a pharmacy in Maryland, slipping it into her handbag among receipts and hand sanitizer. It felt surreal, like she was hiding a secret that could change everything. That night, after the house was quiet, she locked the bathroom door and waited the longest 3 minutes of her life. Time stretched and twisted, each second feeling like an eternity. When those two pink lines appeared almost instantly, bold, unmistakable, her heart raced. Adora emerged with the stick in her trembling hand, eyes wide, a mix of disbelief and joy flooding her system. Chitty was at the dining table, marking up blueprints with highlighters scattered around him. She simply held it out, her heart pounding in her chest. He stared for a moment, then jumped up so fast his chair clattered backward. "Positive?" he whispered, as if saying it louder might make it disappear. She nodded, tears already spilling down her cheeks. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her slightly off the ground like he had when they were dating, that giddy rush of love flooding back. They laughed and cried at once, the kind of joy that feels too big to contain, a celebration of life and love. They knelt right there on the tiled floor and thanked God, hands clasped, voices overlapping in prayer and praise. It was a moment that felt sacred, the kind that you want to hold on to forever. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of confirmations and planning. They chose one of Adaora's father's private clinics in Ikoyi for the first scan, partly for privacy, partly because Dr. Nwosu insisted on overseeing his daughter's care personally. On the day of the appointment, Chitty took half the day off work, dressing in his best native attire as if attending a ceremony. He was beaming with pride, his excitement palpable. They sat in the cool, marble-floored waiting room, Adora sipping cold malt to settle her nerves, while Chitty scrolled through baby name lists on his phone, reading them aloud like a proud father-to-be. I like Chiquiti for a boy, he said, his eyes lighting up. Means God exists. Strong name. Or Ifioma, Adora replied, her heart swelling at the thought of their little girl. God's goodness. For a girl. They were still debating when the sonographer called them in, and the anticipation was electric. The room was dim, the gel cold on Adaora's stomach, sending a shiver down her spine. The wand moved slowly, and the screen flickered to life with grainy black and white images. The sonographer's eyebrows lifted slightly, then higher. 1, 2, 3. She counted softly, moving the wand again. 4 and 5. Chitty leaned forward so quickly he nearly bumped the monitor, his eyes wide with disbelief. 5. Adaora's hand flew to her mouth, shock washing over her. Yes, the sonographer said, turning the screen toward them. Quintuplets. 5 distinct sacs, 5 heartbeats. Congratulations. The room seemed to tilt. Chitty sat down hard on the stool beside the bed, eyes fixed on the 5 tiny flickering pulses. Adora stared, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. 5 babies. 5 heartbeats where they had expected one. They left the clinic in a daze, walking slowly to the car park as if the world had shifted beneath them. Chitty kept repeating, 5. 5 children, half laughing, half praying, trying to wrap his mind around the magnitude of it all. Adaora's hand rested protectively on her still flat stomach, already imagining how it would grow, how their lives would change in ways they couldn't even begin to fathom. Word spread carefully at first, just close family. The grandparents-to-be reacted with a mix of shock, delight, and immediate action. Chief Emeka declared it a multiplication of blessings and began planning trust funds like a proud patriarch. Lady Ngozi booked the best maternity specialists from South Africa, ensuring their grandchildren would have the best care possible. Dr. Obi reviewed every skin personally, calling colleagues in London and Houston for second opinions. Ezen started sourcing the finest baby fabrics for layettes that would befit such a miracle, her excitement infectious. But Chitty and Adora stayed grounded. They turned down offers for a bigger house right away, insisting, "We'll manage here until they arrive." They declined private chefs, Adora saying, "I'll cook my own meals," wanting to maintain that connection to their roots. They politely said no to moving into one of the family estates, affirming, "We want our children born in our home, not a palace." Instead, they prepared with fierce practicality. They converted the guest room and home office into a nursery, painting the walls a soft, gender-neutral yellow from a local market. It was a labor of love, each stroke of paint filled with dreams and hopes for the future. They bought 5 cots secondhand from an expatriate family leaving Lagos, sanding and repainting them on weekends, bonding over the shared task. Adora sewed curtains from affordable Ankara prints, while Chitty assembled a massive changing station from IKEA flat packs, feeling like a true dad-to-be. They shopped for diapers in bulk at Ida Moda, negotiating prices like seasoned traders, laughing at how their lives had turned into a full-on baby prep mission. They attended antenatal classes at a government hospital in Yaba to learn alongside other expectant mothers, not in exclusive private sessions, embracing the community around them. Evenings were spent reading parenting books borrowed from the local library, titles on multiples, breastfeeding, sleep training. They devoured the information, sometimes arguing over different methods, but always coming back to the shared goal of being the best parents they could be. They prayed nightly, asking for strength, health, and wisdom, their voices a soothing balm in the quiet of their home. Friends and church members brought gifts, hand-knitted booties, bowls of pepper soup to boost Adaora's blood, prayers written on cards that filled their hearts with warmth. Adaora's belly grew at an astonishing rate. By the 5th month, she looked full-term with a singleton, drawing attention everywhere she went. Strangers on the street blessed her, market women gave her extra fruit for the Pekin Dem, and Okada riders slowed down to shout, "Mama Ejima," even though it was far beyond twins. They dreamed cautiously, mapping out their lives with the 5 names they had chosen, 2 spare sets in case of surprises. 5 car seats ordered, 5 everything. They felt ready. Overwhelmed, yes. Terrified, sometimes. But ready. They had no idea that the greatest surprise of all was still waiting. 3 more. The day the octuplets arrived started off like any typical Lagos morning. Traffic was a mess on the third mainland bridge. Generators were buzzing away to deal with yet another power outage, and the sun was already cranking up the heat. But for Chitty and Adora, this day was the culmination of months filled with anxious waiting, countless prayers, and a pregnancy that had completely defied all medical expectations. Adora's due date was set for late October, but by early September, her body was already signaling that the babies were ready to make their entrance. Her belly was huge, almost comically so, drawing stares, blessings, and unsolicited advice wherever she went. You could say she was a walking spectacle. She couldn't even see her feet anymore, slept propped up on a mountain of pillows, and moved slowly, always with one hand supporting her back. You know how it is, right? Pregnancy can be a wild ride. Blood pressure checks were a daily routine, glucose tests happened weekly, and specialist visits took place twice a week at her dad's hospital in Ikoyi. It was a full-time job just keeping up with everything. A whole team of obstetricians, neonatologists, anesthetists, and pediatric surgeons had been on standby for weeks, practicing every possible scenario like a well-oiled machine. The anticipation was palpable, and every little movement Adora made was scrutinized like it was the final countdown to a big game. When labor finally kicked in, Adora woke Chitty at 4 a.m. with a sharp gasp. "It's time," she whispered, clutching her side. You could feel the excitement and fear in the air as contractions were starting gently, but were already coming every 10 minutes. Chitty jumped out of bed, calm on the outside but praying fervently under his breath as he helped her get dressed, grabbed the pre-packed hospital bag, and called the driver who had been on 24-hour alert. It was go time. They sent a quick text to the grandparents, short and to the point. "Labor has started. Heading to hospital now. Pray." Just like that, the journey was on, and the excitement was electric. They arrived at Nwosu Medical Center just after dawn. The private wing had been cleared just for them. An entire floor reserved, operating theaters prepped, and incubators lined up like soldiers in the NICU. Dr. Obi himself met them at the entrance, already in his gown, serious, but with eyes sparkling with the pride of a soon-to-be grandfather. "My daughter," he said, kissing Adora's forehead. "Today we welcome miracles." Can you imagine the emotions swirling around? It was a moment of pure joy and nervous anticipation. Because of the high risk, a cesarean section had been planned from the start. Adora was wheeled into the theater at 7:15 a.m., surrounded by more medical personnel than most Nigerian hospitals see in a week. Chitty, scrubbed and gowned, held her hand until the spinal anesthetic kicked in. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking 8 tiny heartbeats and 1 incredibly brave mother's. The atmosphere was thick with tension and hope. The lead obstetrician, a renowned professor flown in from South Africa at Dr. Obi's request, made the first incision at 7:42 a.m. The room fell into focused silence, broken only by the calm instructions of the surgical team. Baby 1, boy, delivered at 7:45. A thin, fierce cry filled the air. Chitty's eyes filled with tears as the tiny infant, barely 1.2 kilograms, was whisked away to the waiting neonatology team. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. Baby 2, girl, 7:46. Another cry, stronger this time. Baby 3, boy, 7:47. Baby 4, girl, 7:48. Baby 5, boy, 7:49. The theater team worked with practiced precision, each baby handed off immediately to its own resuscitation station. 8 in total, each staffed by a pediatrician, nurse, and respiratory therapist. It was like a well-choreographed dance, and Chitty was mesmerized, watching in stunned gratitude as 5 perfect, tiny humans were stabilized, wrapped, and moved to incubators. Then the professor's voice changed, surprised, almost disbelieving. "There's another sack. Baby 6, girl, 7:51. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Chitty gripped the edge of the operating table. Adora, numb from the chest down but fully alert, lifted her head as far as she could. Another. The excitement was palpable, and you could feel the disbelief in the air. The professor continued, voice steady but laced with wonder. Baby 7, boy 7:52. Baby 8, girl 7:53. 8 cries now filled the theater, small, reedy, but fierce. 8 tiny bodies, each no bigger than a bag of sugar, were carried to their stations. The room erupted in quiet exclamations, prayers, and even laughter of disbelief. Nurses wept openly. One of the anesthetists whispered, "Chukwu gozi yunu. God has blessed you." It was a moment that felt almost surreal, like something out of a movie. The medical team had prepared for 5. They had extra staff and equipment on standby for emergencies, but no scan, no specialist, no maternal fetal medicine expert, had detected the 3 additional babies. Later reviews of the ultrasound images would show how cleverly the extra 3 had hidden behind their siblings, heartbeat echoes overlapping, sacks tucked in shadows. It was, the professors would agree, one of the rarest medical events in obstetric history. Can you believe it? What a twist. Chitty was allowed to see them briefly before they were all transferred to the NICU. 8 incubators in a row, each containing a fragile fighter swaddled in soft blankets, tubes and monitors keeping watch. He touched each tiny hand through the portholes, whispering names they had chosen and a few new ones they would now need. Each little one was a miracle, and the reality of what they had created was sinking in. Adora, still in recovery, was shown photos on a tablet, tears streaming down her face as she counted 8 perfect faces. The grandparents arrived soon after, a quiet procession of wealth and emotion. Chief Emeka, usually so composed, stood before the NICU window with tears rolling down his igbada. Lady Ngozi clutched her geli, murmuring thanks to Chukwu Okaike. Dr. Obi, the consummate professional, reviewed charts with colleagues but kept returning to hold his daughter's hand. Ezen distributed envelopes of thanksgiving to nurses and orderlies, her voice breaking as she prayed over each incubator. It was a heartwarming scene, filled with love and gratitude. News leaked within hours. Reporters gathered at the hospital gates. Social media exploded. Lagos woman delivers octuplets. Miracle birth at Nwosu Hospital. 8 babies survive against all odds. The family issued a short statement asking for privacy and prayers, but the nation celebrated anyway. Radio stations played gospel songs in tribute. Churches held Thanksgiving services, and strangers sent gifts and messages of congratulations. The excitement was contagious, and everyone wanted to be part of this incredible story. The babies spent 10 tense weeks in the NICU, growing stronger day by day under round-the-clock care. Chitty and Adora practically lived at the hospital, taking shifts to kangaroo cuddle each child, expressing milk, learning to tube feed, and change the tiniest diapers imaginable. They named them carefully, drawing from Igbo tradition and Christian faith, each name carrying a special meaning that resonated with their journey. Chukwudi, God exists, boy. Nkechi, God's gift, girl. Obinna, Father's heart, boy. Ifeoma, good thing, girl. Kalechi, thank God, boy. Uchechi, God's will, girl. Samtachukwu, praise God with me, boy. Adiz, King's daughter, girl. When the last baby was finally discharged just before Christmas, the family returned home to Lekki in a convoy escorted by hospital security to avoid the press. The mansion's gates closed behind them, and for the first time, Chitty and Adora held all 8 children under one roof, their roof. Can you imagine the joy and relief they felt? It must have been a surreal moment. Exhausted, overjoyed, and utterly transformed, they looked at each other over a sea of bassinets and incubators brought home for monitoring, and made a new vow. These children would be raised not in the shadow of wealth, but in the light of gratitude, discipline, and love. 8 miracles had arrived unannounced, turning every plan they had ever made into a beautiful, chaotic, God-ordained adventure. And the real journey, the one of raising them, was only just beginning. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but with love, faith, and support from family and friends, they were ready to embrace every moment of this incredible journey ahead. The octuplets came home one by one over several days, and each discharge from the NICU felt like a mini victory parade. The last to leave, the tiniest girl, Adiz, finally got the green light just before Christmas, having crept past the crucial 2-kilogram mark. When the convoy of hospital ambulances and family SUVs rolled through the gates of the Lekki mansion that evening, Chitty and Adora stood on the front steps, holding back tears. 8 car seats were carefully unloaded, and 8 tiny bundles were handed over by smiling nurses who had become like family over the past months. The night air was filled with the sweet scent of frangipani from the garden and the distant sound of carols playing on a neighbor's stereo. For the first time, all 10 Okonkwo's were under one roof. And wow, what a feeling that was. The mansion itself was a wedding gift from both sets of parents. A sprawling 5-bedroom home in Lekki Phase 1, complete with high ceilings, marble floors, a large compound, and a staff quarter for live-in help. At first, Chitty and Adora had protested a bit. It felt too grand for a young couple dreaming of a simple life. But now, with 8 newborns, every inch of space was essential. They transformed the ground floor living room into a nursery annex, lined with 8 shining incubators and monitoring equipment brought home from the hospital. Can you imagine the sight? A team of neonatal nurses worked around the clock for the first few months, teaching the parents how to handle feeds, oxygen checks, and the delicate art of bathing preemies. It was a whirlwind, but they were soaking in every moment, even the chaos. Even amidst all this gratitude, Chitty and Adora held on to their principles. They paid the nurses' salaries from their savings and freelance earnings, not from parental allowances. It was important to them to maintain their independence, you know? They turned down the offer of a full-time chef, insisting that Adora would cook as soon as she regained her strength, with help from a trusted house manager who had been with the family since the wedding. They also declined a fleet of new SUVs that the grandparents wanted to provide, sticking with their reliable Toyota and adding just one second-hand Hiace bus for future school runs. "We appreciate the house," Chitty told his father firmly but respectfully over a family dinner shortly after the homecoming. "But we'll maintain it, staff it, and raise our kids with our own hands and resources." Chief Emeka raised an eyebrow, and Lady Ngozi smiled knowingly, but they respected the boundary, mostly. The monthly allowances kept coming, now significantly larger and labeled for the children's welfare, but Chitty and Adora redirected most of it into fixed deposits and education trusts they controlled themselves. It was their way of ensuring that their kids had a secure future without relying too heavily on family wealth. Life settled into a rhythm that was both exhausting and sacred. Feeds every 3 hours, day and night. Diaper changes that felt endless. Laundry mountains that threatened to overtake the utility room. But there were also moments of pure wonder. 8 tiny fists waving in unison during bath time, the soft snuffles and coos filling the house like music, and the way the babies seemed to recognize their parents' voices and calm at their touch. It was like a symphony of life, and they were the conductors. Help came in measured doses. They hired 2 experienced nannies, recommended by the church and thoroughly vetted, to assist with night shifts and daily care. Adora's mother moved in temporarily to oversee meals and recovery, whipping up strengthening soups rich with periwinkle, yaziza, and stockfish. Chitty took extended paternity leave from his engineering firm, spending days learning to swaddle, burp, and rock multiple babies at once. When both parents were finally too tired to stand, they would collapse together on the sofa in the nursery annex, surrounded by the soft glow of incubator lights and the steady beep of monitors, holding hands and whispering thanks to God for strength. Those moments were golden, even if they were fleeting. As the months turned into years, a new vow took shape between them, one born not from the romance of university days, but from sleepless nights and shared sacrifice. It was a commitment to be present, to nurture, and to love fiercely. One quiet evening, when the babies were about 6 months old, finally out of incubators and sleeping in proper cots, Chitty and Adora sat on the back veranda overlooking the garden. The harmattan wind carried a cool edge, and the sky was clear enough to see stars, a rarity in Lagos. The house was unusually peaceful. The nannies had just finished the bedtime routine, and all 8 were asleep. Chitty spoke first, his voice low. "We can't go back to work the way we used to. Not yet." Adora nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "These kids need us, both of us, full-time, at least for the early years." "I've been thinking the same. They are a blessing beyond measure," he continued, "but also a responsibility beyond anything we imagined. If we hand them over to nannies and grandparents now, we'll miss the chance to shape their hearts. Money will always be there. Time with them won't." She squeezed his hand. "So we pause. We dedicate these years to raising them properly, in discipline, in faith, in respect. No spoiling, no shortcuts. When they're older, when school and structure take more of the load, we can rebuild our careers. But this season is for them. It was a costly decision. Chitty resigned from his full-time engineering position, taking only occasional consulting projects he could manage from home. Adora paused all but her longest-standing accounting clients, referring new ones to colleagues. Income dropped sharply, but their savings, careful budgeting, and the untouched portions of family allowances carried them through. The grandparents grumbled at first. Chief Emeka argued that a man should provide. Dr. Obi offered to create executive positions for them in his hospital group. But eventually, they relented, seeing the fierce love and unity in the young couple's choice. And so the years of dedication began. The mansion became a place of purposeful simplicity. Toys were chosen for learning, wooden blocks from local carpenters, picture books bought secondhand, and a single sturdy tricycle shared among them when they grew older. Clothes were practical and coordinated, often sewn in bulk by a trusted tailor. Meals were nutritious and family-style: egusi, vegetable soup, yam pottage, eaten together at a long table as soon as the children could sit up. Screen time was almost non-existent. Instead, there were stories from the Bible, folk tales told by Adora and Ebo, and songs led by Chitty on Sunday evenings. Discipline was gentle but firm. Sharing was non-negotiable. Manners were taught early. Thank you, Andy. Please, Daddy. And chores began as soon as little hands could manage. Picking up toys, wiping tables, watering plants in the garden. Church every Sunday was mandatory, dressed in matching Ankara outfits. The children learned to pray, greet elders properly, and wait their turn. Visitors often marveled at how 8 kids could play so harmoniously with so little. The grandparents visited often, bringing gifts, but Chitty and Adora set loving boundaries. Expensive gadgets were politely declined or donated, sweets were limited, and bedtimes enforced even during visits. The kids grew up knowing they were deeply loved by wealthy grandparents, but they experienced that love through presents, stories, laps to sit on, outings to the beach, rather than possessions. By their 6th birthday, the Octuplets were healthy, bright, respectful kids who could recite Bible verses, count in English and Igbo, share a single biscuit 8 ways without fighting, and greet visitors with confident, "Good afternoon, Sir/Ma." They attended a good but not extravagant private school, arrived in the family highest, and came home to parents who were always there. Chitty and Adora looked at each other across the chaos of 8 laughing voices and knew the sacrifice had been worth it. But they also knew something else. For 6 years, they had poured everything into their children. They hadn't, in all that time, poured much into each other. And so, as the 6th birthday candles flickered and were blown out in one collective breath, a new chapter quietly began to form. One that would reclaim the marriage that had carried them through the miracle and test the careful boundaries they had drawn around family wealth once more. The years that followed the Octuplets' homecoming were a tapestry woven from equal parts exhaustion, joy, and unwavering commitment. A period Chitty and Adora would later call their season of sacrifice, though at the time it simply felt like life itself. From infancy through toddlerhood, the house in Lekki Phase 1 hummed with a rhythm unique to a family of 10. The day began at 5:30 a.m., when the first baby, usually Kalechi, the early riser, would stir and set off a chain reaction of wake-ups. Feeds were staggered to avoid total chaos. For babies at a time on bottle schedules carefully charted on a whiteboard in the kitchen. Adora breastfed as long as she could, pumping religiously between direct feeds to build a freezer stock that filled an entire upright unit. Chitty became an expert at preparing formula with one hand while rocking a fussy baby with the other. The nannies helped, but the parents insisted on doing the majority themselves. Every 3 a.m. feed, every soothing session for colic, every first smile captured on a modest phone camera. It was a wild. As the kids grew, the mansion transformed right along with them. The formal dining room? It turned into this super vibrant play and learning space that was just bursting with life. Picture it. Low tables, colorful mats from Balagan Market, and shelves overflowing with secondhand board books and puzzles from expat families who were leaving Nigeria. It was like a treasure trove of fun and learning all rolled into one cozy room. The garden got a major upgrade too. They put up a secure fence, added soft grass that felt amazing underfoot, and even built a sandbox that Chitty took pride in making himself on weekends. Oh, And let's not forget the sturdy swing set crafted by a trusted artisan in Aja. It was like their own little paradise. The toys were kept to a minimum, but they were all about quality over quantity. You had wooden blocks carved by a craftsman in Ashadi, cloth dolls sewn by Adiora's talented tailor Annie, a single big plastic truck that the boys shared, and dolls with removable clothes for the girls. No noisy, battery-operated gadgets here. Chitty and Adora were all about that quiet play that sparked creativity and teamwork. It was all about letting their imaginations run wild. Meals were sacred family time, and let me tell you, they made the most of it. Breakfast often featured akamu or custard with muamua, while lunch was usually a hearty rice and stew made in massive pots by Adora, with a little help from the house manager. And dinner? It was lighter fare, like yam and vegetable soup or plantain with eggs. From the moment the kids could sit in high chairs, they gathered around a long custom-made table with benches that fit all 8 of them side by side. It was a sight to behold. Manners were instilled early on, with little phrases like, "Please pass the water," "Thank you, Mummy," and "No food on the floor" becoming second nature. Everyone got equal portions, and seconds were only allowed after everyone had their firsts. Wasting food was gently corrected with reminders about kids who had less. It was a beautiful way to teach gratitude and appreciation for what they had. Discipline was consistent and rooted in love. Timeouts were given in a designated calm corner for hitting or grabbing, which helped them learn about consequences. Natural consequences, like cleaning up spilled water themselves, taught them responsibility in a way that felt organic. Praise flowed freely for acts of kindness, sharing, and helpfulness. You could see the pride in their little faces when they did something nice for a sibling. Bedtime was set in stone. Baths at 7:30 p.m., followed by family devotion with Bible stories and songs, and lights out by 8 o'clock. Chitty or Adora read aloud every night. Sometimes the same simple book repeated, so each child could see the pictures. The kids learned to pray early, their tiny voices chiming in unison. "Thank you, God, for Mummy and Daddy and my brothers and sisters." It was heartwarming, to say the least. Education kicked off at home long before they hit school age. Adora, with her organized mind, whipped up color-coded flashcards for letters, numbers, shapes, and Igbo vocabulary. Chitty built a chalkboard wall in the playroom for drawing and early writing practice. They sang counting songs in English, Yoruba, to keep it local, and Igbo. Church was a big deal. Every Sunday, the family showed up at the Redeemed Christian Church of God Parish dressed in matching Ankara outfits. 8 sewed new sets twice a year, sitting together in one long pew. You could see the kids surprisingly still during service because they had practiced sitting quietly at home. It was a sight that warmed the heart. Screen time was almost non-existent. The family TV was only used occasionally for educational DVDs borrowed from the church library or for Nollywood family films on Friday nights with popcorn. No personal tablets or smartphones to quiet tantrums. No way. Instead, there were storytelling sessions where Adora shared Anansi tales or village folk tales passed down from her mother, while Chitty told simplified stories of Nigerian heroes like Queen Amina or Herbert Macaulay. It was all about keeping the kids connected to their roots and fostering a love for stories. Chores started as soon as those little hands could manage. Picking up toys after playtime, wiping their own tables after meals, watering the garden plants with tiny cans, folding face towels, sorting laundry by color. Praise followed every effort. "Look how helpful Obina is," making the tasks feel like contributions rather than chores. It was all about teamwork and building a sense of responsibility. Grandparents visited regularly, always announced in advance to keep routines intact. They brought love in abundance, stories, a few sweets, and outings to Lekki Conservation Center or the beach, but expensive gifts were gently redirected. When a proposed set of child-sized iPads came up, they were thanked and declined. Instead, the money was requested for the kids' education trust. Remote control cars that showed up one Christmas were donated to an orphanage, with the Octuplets helping pack them up as a lesson in generosity. Over time, the elders learned the boundaries and respected them, focusing on presence over presence. It was a beautiful way to instill values of gratitude and generosity in the kids. Health was a top priority. Immunizations were on schedule, mosquito nets hung over every cot and bed, and regular checkups happened at a trusted pediatric clinic. not the grandparents' private facilities to avoid any special treatment. When fevers or coughs struck, the household went into gentle quarantine mode. Extra fluids, precisely measured paracetamol, and parents taking shifts through the night. They were a well-oiled machine when it came to keeping their kids healthy. By age 3, the kids were potty trained in a coordinated effort that felt like a military operation but worked with charts, stickers, and celebration dances. By 4, they could recite the Lord's Prayer, count to 50, write their names, and greet visitors with confident handshakes and "Good afternoon, Sir/Ma." By 5, they attended a modest private nursery school nearby, dropped off and picked up by Chitty in the family highest, uniforms pressed, lunchboxes filled with home-cooked meals. They were ready for the world. Visitors, church members, old university friends, curious neighbors, often marveled. "How do you manage 8 so calmly?" they would ask. Adora would smile and say, "Routine, prayer, and teamwork." Chitty would add, "And a lot of grace from above." It was a sweet reminder of the hard work and love that went into raising their beautiful family. Yet, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Chitty's engineering career was on hold, limited to occasional consulting that barely covered daily expenses. Adeora's accounting practice had shrunk to 2 loyal clients she could manage remotely. Savings dwindled, but pride and purpose kept them going. Their marriage, though strong in shared mission, had little room for romance. No quiet dinners, no spontaneous weekends away, no long conversations that didn't eventually circle back to feeds, fevers, or school fees. It was tough, but they made it work. But the kids thrived. They were healthy, bright, affectionate, and remarkably disciplined for their age. They played together for hours with nothing but sticks, bottles, and their imaginations, building houses in the garden, acting out Bible stories, racing across the lawn. They shared without prompting, comforted each other when one cried, and greeted their parents with fierce hugs every morning and night. It was pure joy to witness. By their 6th birthday, the Octuplets stood as a testament to the vow their parents had made, raised not in the shadow of billions, but in the warm light of dedicated love, faith, and intentional simplicity. They were a beautiful reminder of what really mattered in life. As that milestone approached, with 8 bright candles ready to be blown out, Chitty and Adora began to feel a quiet stirring, a realization that the season of total sacrifice for parenthood might, at long last, allow a small space for the marriage that had carried them through it all. They started to dream about what it might be like to carve out a little time for just the 2 of them, to reconnect and rekindle that spark that had dimmed over the years. They reminisced about their early days, the laughter, the adventures, and the dreams they had shared. Maybe it was time to prioritize their relationship a bit more, to create a balance between being amazing parents and being partners in love. They talked about planning a special dinner at home, just the 2 of them, after the kids were asleep. A chance to share their hopes and dreams again, to remind each other why they fell in love in the first place. As the days passed, they found little moments to cherish together. A quiet cup of tea in the morning before the chaos began, a quick chat about their day while prepping dinner, or a shared glance across the table during family meals that spoke volumes. They started to see each other not just as co-parents, but as partners, allies in this wild journey of raising 8 incredible kids. And as the Octuplets blew out their candles that birthday, the joy in the room was palpable. Laughter, cheers, and the sweet sound of their voices filled the air, but there was something deeper brewing beneath the surface for Chitty and Adora. They knew that while their kids were their world, their love was the foundation that held everything together. With each passing day, they were learning that nurturing their relationship was just as important as nurturing their children. It was a beautiful journey, filled with ups and downs, but through it all, they were committed to each other and their family. As they watched their children grow, they also looked forward to growing together, hand. But the romance, the little glances across crowded rooms, those spontaneous dances in the kitchen to old high-life tunes, and the whispered dreams about future travels and cozy evenings just for 2, had faded away. It's like they were living in a whirlwind of responsibilities, right? They hadn't really been alone together since that unforgettable night 6 years ago when Adeora's waters broke. Now, their conversations were mostly about the kids, school reports, behavior charts, vaccination schedules, and who was outgrowing which uniform. It's like they were running a small school instead of enjoying a partnership. One evening in early October, just weeks before the kids turned 6, Chitty and Adora found themselves on the back veranda after the children finally fell asleep. The house was unusually quiet. The nannies had the night off, and all 8 were down after a busy day of garden play. Can you imagine that? 8 little ones, all asleep. The Lego sky was clear for once, stars twinkling above the city's glow. A cool breeze wafted through, bringing the mouth-watering smell of the neighbors grilling suya and the distant beat of Afrobeat from a passing car. Adora sipped a cup of Zobo she had made earlier. Chitty nursed a bottle of Gulder, condensation dripping onto his knee. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that comes from years of being together. But then Adora broke the stillness, her voice soft but heavy with something unspoken. "Chitty, do you ever feel like we've disappeared?" He turned to her, brow furrowing in confusion. "Disappeared? How?" She gestured vaguely toward the house. "Into them. Into this life we've built. I love it. I thank God every day for our kids, for how they're growing. But sometimes, I miss us." The us before 8 heartbeats changed everything. Chitty was quiet for a long moment, staring at the garden where the kids' swing set stood silhouetted against the night sky. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost surprised, as if he had just realized something. "I miss you too," he admitted. "I see you every day, beautiful, strong, the best mom any child could ask for. But I miss my wife, the one I used to take to jazz nights at Bagabiri House. The one who laughed until she cried when I tried to cook fried rice and burned it. The one I could talk to about anything, dreams, fears, nonsense, without it always coming back to teething or school fees." Adaora's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "Exactly. We've been so focused on giving them roots that we forgot to water our own marriage." They talked late into the night, the longest, deepest conversation they'd had in years. They remembered their courtship, those stolen moments between lectures at Unilag, Adora teasing Chitty about his serious engineering notes, Chitty bringing her suya wrapped in newspaper after evening study sessions. They recalled their honeymoon in Obudu, walking hand in hand through misty hills, promising each other a lifetime of adventures. They admitted the small griefs, how exhaustion had replaced passion, how couple time had become a mythical concept, how they sometimes felt more like co-managers of a small village than husband and wife. "We've done well by them," Chitty said finally, reaching for her hand. "They're happy, healthy, respectful. We kept our vow to raise them with discipline and love. But we can't disappear completely. We need time, just us, to remember who we are when it's not about 8 lunchboxes or bedtime stories." Adora squeezed his fingers, feeling a warmth spread through her. "Christmas is coming. The kids will be 6 soon, old enough to understand a short separation. What if we took a real holiday? 2 weeks. Somewhere far enough that phones barely work. Just you and me." Chitty's eyes lit up, the same spark she remembered from their dating days. "Where?" She smiled, a playful glint returning. "Dubai? We've saved a little. Or Calabar, Cross River, quiet resorts. Or even Paris if we're feeling bold." They laughed softly at the idea of Paris on their modest budget, but the seed was planted. The more they talked, the more the plan took shape. After the 6th birthday celebrations, they would invite both sets of grandparents to stay at the mansion. The elders had been begging for more time with the kids anyway. 2 weeks, 14 days to rediscover each other, to laugh without interruption, to sleep past dawn, to hold hands on a beach or in a foreign market and feel like newlyweds again. At first, it felt almost selfish, leaving their precious miracles for so long. But then Adora said the words that settled it. "If we burn out completely, what good are we to them? A strong marriage is the best gift we can give our children. They need parents who love God and each other." Chitty pulled her close, kissing her forehead like he had on their wedding night. "Then we do it. After the birthday, we go. We come back better, for them and for us." In the weeks that followed, excitement built quietly. They planned a simple birthday party, homemade cake, games in the garden, a few carefully chosen gifts shared among all 8. They spoke to the grandparents, who agreed enthusiastically, maybe too enthusiastically, to babysit. And in stolen moments, while folding laundry or preparing school lunches, they exchanged glances that held new promise. The fading spark hadn't died. It had just been waiting for some fresh air. And soon, far from the joyful chaos of 8 little voices, Chitty and Adora would fan it back into flame. With the decision made to take a proper holiday after the kid's 6th birthday, Chitty and Adora felt a quiet thrill they hadn't experienced in years. It was like a long-closed window had been cracked open, letting in fresh air and the promise of something just for them. They kept the plan private at first, discussing it only in stolen moments. While washing dishes together after dinner, during the rare quiet minutes after the kids' bedtime stories, or in whispered conversations on the veranda long after the house had gone to sleep. The first thing on their minds was the birthday itself. They wanted it to reflect their values: simple, meaningful, and family-focused. No extravagant venue at a hotel ballroom, no bouncy castles rented from event planners, and definitely no appearance by a children's entertainer in a flashy costume. Instead, they chose the backyard of the Lecky mansion, transforming it for one afternoon into a joyful village celebration. Adora took charge of the food, as she always did. She spent days planning a menu that would delight the kids without going overboard. Akara and pap for breakfast, puff puff dusted with sugar for snacks, jollof rice with succulent chicken cooked in massive pots over outdoor burners, and a large sheet cake she would bake herself, vanilla sponge layered with buttercream, simply decorated with the kids' names piped in colorful icing. There would be plenty of soft drinks, Fanta, Coke, La Casera, but served in moderation, with water and Zobo encouraged first. Fresh fruits from the market, bananas, oranges, watermelon cut into stars, would round out the spread. Chitty handled the games and decorations. He built a makeshift obstacle course in the garden using old tires, planks, and ropes, something the kids could race through, laughing all the way. He strung fairy lights across the trees, saved from last Christmas, and hung handmade bunting sewn from leftover Ankara scraps. Balloons were limited to a modest bunch in the national colors, green, white, green, to celebrate Nigeria's spirit as much as the birthday. Gifts were shared rather than individual. A new set of wooden blocks for building, a large puzzle map of Africa, a football for the kids to share, and beautiful picture books about Nigerian folktales and heroes. Invitations went only to close family, a few church friends with kids of similar ages, and the Octuplets classmates from school. No media, no society photographers. The grandparents were, of course, invited as guests of honor, but Chitty and Adora gently reminded them in advance. Please, no extravagant presents. We want the day to be about togetherness, not things. The birthday dawned bright and clear. The kids woke early, buzzing with excitement in their matching Ankara outfits. Adora had sewn new sets in vibrant blue and yellow attire fabric. Breakfast was festive, with the Akara served hot and crispy. Games began soon after. Sack races that had everyone collapsing in giggles, a spirited egg and spoon relay, and musical chairs played to old high-life tunes from Chitty's playlist. The Octuplets shone, cheering each other on, helping younger guests, and showing the discipline their parents had worked so hard to instill. When it was time for cake, all 8 gathered around the table, faces glowing in the candlelight. They sang Happy Birthday in English, then a joyful Igbo version Adora had taught them, before blowing out the candles in one collective, triumphant breath. Photos captured the moment. 8 smiling faces, parents beaming behind them, grandparents clapping proudly from the sides. As the day unfolded, laughter and joy filled the air, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. It was a celebration not just of the kids, but of their family, of love, and of the promise of a future together. Chitty and Adora exchanged glances that spoke volumes, each smile a reminder of the connection they were wreck. As the afternoon light began to fade, guests made their way out, each one clutching little party packs filled with homemade chin-chin and a piece of fresh fruit. The kids, who were absolutely buzzing with happiness, pitched in to help clean up without any fuss at all. They happily carried plates to the kitchen and swept up balloons that had floated to the corners of the room. After a fun-filled day, they took their baths, said their prayers, and snuggled into bed, clutching their new shared gifts, drifting off into sweet dreams with smiles on their faces. Later that night, once the house finally settled into a peaceful quiet, Chitty and Adora found themselves in the living room with their grandparents. The elders had come through with their promises, bringing gifts that were simple yet thoughtful. Storybooks from Lady Ngozi, educational puzzles from Chief Emeka, traditional wooden toys carved in Dr. Obi's village, and beautiful hand-woven mats from Ezen. No gadgets or flashy items. Just pure, heartfelt gifts that meant so much more. Now came the moment they had been waiting for, and it felt a bit like stepping onto a stage. Chitty cleared his throat, his heart racing a little. Daddy, Mummy, Papa, Mama, Adora, and I have something to ask. He took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. He laid out their plan, a 2-week Christmas getaway, just the two of them. Can you believe it? Their first real break since the kids were born. They had saved up for this moment, booked budget flights to Dubai, and even snagged a cozy hotel near the beach. It felt like a dream come true. They really needed this time, not just to recharge, but to strengthen their marriage for the kids' sake. After all, a happy couple makes for happy kids, right? Silence hung in the air for a moment, thick with anticipation. Then, Chief Emika's deep laugh broke the tension like a warm sunbeam. "Ah, my son. Finally, we've been waiting for you to ask this." His laughter was infectious, and it eased the butterflies in Chitty's stomach. Lady Ngozi's eyes sparkled with emotion. "You've given everything to these children. It's time you remember your husband and wife, not just parents." Her words wrapped around them like a warm hug, and Chitty felt a swell of gratitude. Dr. Obi nodded seriously, his expression thoughtful. "We'll stay here. All of us. The kids will be safe, loved, and yes, we'll try to stick to your rules." There was a hint of mischief in his voice, and Chitty couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of his parents trying to follow their strict guidelines. Ezen clapped her hands in excitement. 2 weeks. We'll cook their favorites, take them to the park, and tell them stories of when you were little. Go, my daughter. Go and enjoy. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and Chitty and Adora exchanged relieved glances, feeling the weight lift off their shoulders. A wave of relief washed over Chitty and Adora. They had braced themselves for resistance, arguments about safety, or insistence on sending bodyguards, or pushing for a more luxurious trip. Instead, they got enthusiastic support, which felt like a gift in itself. In the days that followed, preparations kicked into high gear. Adora dove into crafting detailed schedules, meal plans, school holiday routines. The kids would be on Christmas break, emergency contacts, allergy reminders, none, thank goodness, and a strict bedtime chart. She was in her element, making sure everything was organized and ready. Meanwhile, Chitty took charge of security, installing extra cameras and briefing the staff on their duties. They packed light, sharing suitcases to save on baggage fees, and planned budget-friendly excursions, a desert safari, a visit to the old souk, maybe even a sunset dhow cruise. The excitement was palpable. They gently broke the news to the kids, keeping it age-appropriate. "Mummy and Daddy are going on a short trip to rest and pray, so we can come back stronger for you. Grandma and Grandpa will stay here and take care of you." At first, there were a few tears, especially from Ifioma, who was closest to Adora, but soon, excitement took over. The idea of having all 4 grandparents in the house full-time was thrilling for the Octuplets. Departure day arrived in early December, bathed in the golden Lego sunlight that made even the bustling city feel full of promise. The Octuplets, sensing the excitement in the air, were up earlier than usual, bouncing around in their pajamas and firing off questions. "Will you bring us snow from Dubai? Do they have jollof rice there? Can we come next time?" Their innocent curiosity made Chitty and Adora smile. Moving through the morning with practiced calm, they double-checked their suitcases one last time. Light luggage filled mostly with comfy clothes, a couple of nice outfits for evenings out, comfy walking shoes, and small surprises for each other. They opted for practicality over luxury. A mid-range hotel near Jumeirah Beach, booked through a deal site, economy plus seats on Emirates for a bit more legroom, and a carefully budgeted itinerary that included free sites like the Dubai Fountain and affordable experiences like the Spice and Gold Souks. By mid-morning, the sound of car engines signaled the grandparents' arrival. It was a convoy worthy of a state visit. Chief Emika and Lady Ngozi arrived first in their sleek black Mercedes G-Wagon, closely followed by Dr. Obi and Chief, Mrs. Ezen in a shiny silver Range Rover. The gates swung open, and the vehicles rolled into the compound, tires crunching on the gravel driveway. The kids rushed to the front steps, waving excitedly as the doors opened. Chief Emika stepped out first, tall and imposing, dressed in a crisp white agbada with gold embroidery that sparkled in the sunlight. He scooped up Samtachukwu and Adiz in one big hug, his deep laugh echoing across the yard. My grandchildren, look how big you've grown. His joy was infectious, and the kids giggled with delight. Lady Ngozi followed, elegant in a flowing royal blue gelly and wrapper, showering kisses and handing out small envelopes of transport money to the nannies and house staff who came out to greet them. It was such a sweet gesture, and it made everyone feel appreciated. Dr. Obi stepped out next, looking distinguished in a tailored suit despite the heat, carrying a leather doctor's bag out of habit, even though he was here as a grandfather, not a physician. Ezen was a vision in vibrant orange lace, her jewelry sparkling as she hugged each child, murmuring blessings in Igbo. Ndabizi, life is supreme. Ifyinanya, love, you will all grow in wisdom and favor. Her words wrapped around the kids like a warm blanket, filling the air with love. The trunks were unloaded with military precision, suitcases for the grandparents' 2-week stay, plus several large coolers and wrapped parcels that made Chitty raise an eyebrow. Mummy, Daddy, we said light packing, he reminded gently, trying to keep the mood light. Chief Emiko waved a hand dismissively. My son, these are just small things for the children. Sweets from London, some educational toys, nothing much. His tone was casual, but Chitty couldn't help but feel a mix of amusement and exasperation. Adora caught Ezen's eye and received a conspiratorial wink. She made a mental note to check out the parcels later. Curiosity piqued. The handover was thorough. Chitty walked the grandparents through the house, pointing out routines on laminated charts posted in the kitchen and playroom. Meal times, snack limits, fruit and nuts only between meals, screen rules, one educational DVD per day, maximum. Bedtime at 8 p.m. sharp, and the chore chart where each child had daily tasks. Adora reviewed medical information, allergies, none, current medications, just multivitamins, emergency numbers, and where to find the first aid kit. The nannies and house manager would stay on duty for continuity, but the grandparents would be in charge, and Chitty felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. As they wrapped up the handover, Chitty and Adora exchanged knowing glances, their hearts swelling with appreciation for their families. They felt lucky to have such a strong support system. With the kids happily settled in, they were ready to embark on their much-needed adventure. And so, with hearts full of hope and excitement, they stepped out into the world, ready to embrace whatever Dubai had in store for them. The journey ahead was not just a trip, it was a chance to reconnect, to rediscover each other, and to come back stronger for their beautiful family. The kids, eyes wide with excitement at having all 4 grandparents under one roof, clung to their legs, firing off questions like little rockets. Will you tell us stories every night? Can we visit your big house? Will you cook pounded yam? You could just feel their energy buzzing in the air. Lady Ngozi knelt down to meet them at eye level, her smile warm and inviting. Every night, stories for sure. And yes, we'll whip up all your favorites, but we'll stick to Mummy and Daddy's rules, okay? The kids nodded, their little faces lighting up at the thought of delicious meals and enchanting tales. The elders nodded seriously, showing they were all in on the plan. Chitty chimed in with a playful yet firm tone. No excessive gifts, please. No late nights. No gadgets or sweets before meals. We want you to have fun, but we also want you to stay grounded. It was like a family meeting, and everyone was on board. Dr. Obi placed a reassuring hand on Chitty's shoulder, a gesture of support and understanding. We understand, my son. We'll respect your wishes. It was heartwarming to see the respect flowing between generations, a bond that was both deep and meaningful. Of course, there were photos, those sweet moments captured forever. They took group shots on the front steps, with the kids lined up in front, grandparents standing proudly behind, and Chitty and Adora on either end, bags in hand. The Octuplets waved homemade Bon Voyage signs they had colored the day before, their faces beaming with joy. Hugs were shared, long, emotional ones between Adora and her mom, a firm handshake and backslap between Chitty and his dad, each gesture filled with love and anticipation. As the driver loaded their bags into the airport car, the kids started to feel the weight of the separation. Ifeoma's lip quivered, a telltale sign of her feelings. Uchechi hid behind Ezen's wrapper, seeking comfort. Even the usually boisterous Chikwudi looked suddenly small, his excitement dimmed by the thought of saying goodbye. Adora knelt down, gathering them all into a tight circle, a protective embrace. "Mummy and Daddy are going to rest and pray so we can be strong for you," she said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "You'll have so much fun with Grandma and Grandpa. Be good, help them out, say your prayers, and remember, we love you bigger than the sky." It was a heartfelt promise, one that echoed in the kids' hearts. Chitty added, "And when we come back, we'll bring stories and little surprises. Be kind to each other, okay?" It was a gentle reminder, filled with love and care, that they were always thinking of them. One by one, they hugged each child, calling them by name, whispering personal blessings. "Obina, be the leader you are. Nkechi, keep smiling. Kalechi, thank God every day." Tears flowed freely now, but they were mixed with the kids' excitement for the adventure of having their grandparents around. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with love and the promise of new memories. Finally, the car pulled away. From the back window, Chitty and Adora watched 8 small figures waving frantically, flanked by 4 proud elders. The gates closed behind them, and the car merged into Lekki traffic, headed for the airport, the city buzzing with life around them. In the sudden quiet of the back seat, Adora leaned her head on Chitty's shoulder. "We did it," she whispered, a mix of relief and joy in her voice. He kissed the top of her head, a gesture that spoke volumes. "Yes, and now us." It was a moment of connection, a reminder of their partnership, ready to embrace the journey ahead. Behind them, the grandparents turned back into the house, arms around grandchildren, already plotting the first of many indulgent, but promised to be restrained, adventures. The mansion, usually so structured under Chitty and Adaora's watchful eyes, was about to embrace a very different 2 weeks, filled with laughter, stories, and love. And up in the sky above Lagos, a plane waited to carry 2 exhausted, loving parents toward 14 days of rediscovery, romance, and the simple joy of being just a husband and wife again. They were ready to explore, to reconnect, and to remember what it felt like to just be them. Rediscovering love. The flight to Dubai felt like a dream from the moment the plane lifted off the runway at Murtala Mohammed International Airport. For the first time in 6 years, Chitty and Adora sat side by side without car seats to buckle, snacks to distribute, or a chorus of "Are we there yet?" from the back. The cabin lights dimmed for the night journey, and Adora rested her head on Chitty's shoulder, his arm around her as naturally as it had been on their honeymoon. They whispered like young lovers again, about nothing and everything, until sleep finally claimed them both, undisturbed by cries or monitor beeps. They landed in Dubai just after dawn, the city emerging from the desert like a shimmering mirage. The air was cooler than Lagos, dry and crisp, carrying faint hints of spice and sea. Immigration was a breeze, their modest luggage collected quickly, and soon they were in a taxi heading toward Jumeirah. Adora pressed her face to the window, wide-eyed at the towering skyline. The Burj Khalifa piercing the clouds, the sail-shaped Burj Al Arab gleaming white against the blue. "It's like waking up in another world," she murmured. Chitty squeezed her hand. "Our world, for 2 weeks." Their hotel wasn't one of those ultra-luxury palaces the grandparents would have picked, but a cozy mid-range resort near the beach with a small pool, clean rooms, and a balcony overlooking the Persian Gulf. They checked in, dropped their bags, and stood on that balcony for a long time, arms wrapped around each other, watching the waves roll in. No schedule, no chores waiting, just the sound of water and gulls, and the warmth of the rising sun on their faces. The first few days felt like a dreamy escape, wrapped in a blissful haze of simple pleasures they had almost forgotten existed. Can you believe they actually slept late, until 9 or 10 a.m.? Just imagine waking up naturally, no little feet pattering down the hallway to jolt them from sleep. It was such a refreshing change. Breakfast was a delightful affair. Fresh dates, creamy labna, warm flatbread, and strong Arabic coffee on the terrace. They'd feed each other pieces of fruit, giggling at their inside jokes, feeling that spark of connection that had been missing for so long. Strolling along the beach hand in hand, they reveled in the feeling of the soft sand beneath their bare feet, collecting tiny shells as the waves playfully washed over their ankles. It was such a beautiful, carefree moment, with the sun shining down and the sound of the ocean filling the air. And those evenings? Oh, they were something special. The sunsets painted the sky in these breathtaking shades of orange and pink, and they'd sink into beach loungers, soaking in the beauty of it all, with nothing but each other for company. One afternoon, they decided to take an abra, a traditional wooden boat, across Dubai Creek to explore the old souks. The spice market was like stepping into a fragrant wonderland, enveloped in clouds of cardamom, saffron, and cinnamon. Vendors called out in melodic Arabic, offering samples of dates stuffed with almonds, and it was impossible not to feel the vibrant energy of the place. In the gold souk, the light bounced off glittering displays, but they didn't splurge on anything extravagant. Instead, they chose a simple silver bracelet for Adora, engraved with their initials and the date, and matching prayer beads for Chitty made of cool black onyx. They haggled playfully with a shopkeeper, slipping back into their market days in Lagos, and walked away laughing, feeling thrilled at how little they had spent. Another day, they joined a budget desert safari, opting to share a jeep instead of going private. The ride over the dunes was an absolute thrill. The vehicle climbed and plunged, and they couldn't help but scream like teenagers caught up in the excitement. At the camp, they watched a mesmerizing belly dancer under the stars, feasting on grilled meat and hummus around a fire. They even rode camels together, with Adora clinging to Chitty as the animal lurched to its feet. Later, wrapped in a shared blanket against the surprising desert chill, they lay back on cushions, gazing up at a sky so full of stars it felt close enough to touch. "Do you remember when we used to dream about nights like this?" Adora whispered, her eyes sparkling with wonder. Chitty kissed her temple and replied, "We're living it now." Romance returned slowly, then all at once. The first night, they were almost shy, bodies changed by parenthood, rhythms disrupted for years. But exhaustion melted away into tenderness, and that tenderness blossomed into passion. They rediscovered each other with the wonder of first lovers and the depth of old ones. Long kisses in the shower, lazy mornings tangled in sheets, and quiet laughter filled the air when they realized just how much they had missed those simple touches. One evening, they dressed up, Adora in a flowing dress she bought in the souk, and Chitty in a crisp shirt, and found a rooftop restaurant playing live Afrobeat covers. They danced slowly to songs that reminded them of their university parties, foreheads touching, moving as one, lost in their little world. They talked, really talked, for hours, diving deep into fears they had buried. Adora shared her quiet worry that motherhood had erased the ambitious woman she once was, while Chitty opened up about his guilt over pausing his career and wondering if he was still the provider he wanted to be. They dreamt about the future, imagining travel with the kids when they were older, perhaps restarting their careers in new ways, and maybe even one day building a small family resort in Calabar. Their faith came into the conversation too, how the Octuplets had deepened it but also tested it. They prayed together on the balcony one dawn, facing the rising sun, thanking God for the miracle of their family and asking for wisdom to balance love for their children with love for each other. They sent occasional WhatsApp photos to the grandparents, sunset shots, a camel selfie, receiving adorable videos in return of the kids waving or proudly showing off drawings they had made for Mummy and Daddy. The updates reassured them. The kids were happy, eating well, and mostly sleeping on schedule. And the grandparents? They seemed to be sticking to the rules. No signs of excessive gifts in the photos, at least. Every little moment felt like a treasure, a reminder of the love that had brought them here, and they were savoring every second of their time together, rediscovering not just each other, but the joy of being a couple again. Halfway through their trip on Christmas Eve, they decided to treat themselves to a Dow dinner cruise. The wooden boat smoothly glided along the marina, and the city lights sparkled on the water like scattered diamonds. It was one of those magical nights that felt like a scene from a movie, you know? They savored delicious Emirati dishes, think mouth-watering makbous and sweet, fluffy lukamat, while fireworks lit up the sky over the Burj Khalifa at midnight, ringing in Christmas Day. Under that dazzling display, Chitty pulled Adora close and said something he hadn't said in way too long. "You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I fall more in love with you every day, even on the tough ones." She wiped happy tears from her eyes, leaning into him, feeling every word he said. "And you're my rock, Chitty. Always." The rest of their days blurred into more walks, laughter, and those quiet moments that brought them back together. They visited the Dubai Miracle Garden, where fields of flowers were arranged in the wildest shapes. It was like stepping into a fairy tale. They snapped silly photos under heart-shaped arches, giggling like kids. They hopped on the metro just for kicks, people watching and holding hands like teenagers, feeling that spark again. They even attended a Christmas service at a cozy expatriate church, singing carols in English and soaking up the comforting vibe of faith far from home. By the end of their 2-week adventure, they were sun-kissed, relaxed, and completely recharged. The tired lines around their eyes had softened, and their conversations flowed easily again, about everything and nothing. Their touches were frequent and felt so natural. For the first time in years, they felt like partners in adventure, not just co-parents juggling life. On the flight home, Adora rested her head on Chitty's chest. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice soft and sincere. "For what?" he asked, genuinely curious. "For reminding me who we are when the world isn't watching. For giving us this." He kissed her hair, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. "We needed it. And now, we go home stronger. For them. And for us." As the plane began its descent into Lagos, the city lights twinkled below, familiar and chaotic, yet beloved. They were ready to return to their 8 little miracles. But neither of them could have imagined how much those miracles, and the grandparents' loving indulgence, had changed in their absence. The flight back to Lagos was a mix of emotions. Chitty and Adora held hands across the armrest, fingers intertwined as they watched the Arabian coastline fade below the clouds. They were tanned, rested, and profoundly reconnected, chatting like newlyweds again, sharing private smiles over memories of desert sunsets and late-night dances. Adora's new silver bracelet sparkled in the cabin light, while Chitty absent-mindedly rolled his onyx prayer beads between his fingers. They even made quiet plans for the future. Weekend getaways once a year, a savings fund just for us, trips, and a promise to carve out one evening a week for dates at home once the kids were asleep. As the plane began its descent into Murtala Mohammed International, excitement bubbled up inside Adora. "I can't wait to see their faces," she said, squeezing Chitty's hand. "They'll have grown an inch, I swear." Chitty chuckled, picturing their kids running toward them. "And they'll talk your ear off for hours. I miss those little voices." Immigration and baggage claim flew by in a happy blur. Their driver, sent by the grandparents, met them at arrivals with a sign that read, "Welcome home, Mummy and Daddy," in adorable, childish handwriting, clearly the work of their octuplets. In the car, Adora scrolled through the latest WhatsApp updates. Photos of the kids at the Lekki Conservation Center posing with monkeys, a video of them singing Christmas carols in matching red outfits, and another of them helping bake chin-chin in the kitchen. Everything looked joyful and orderly. The captions from Lady Ngozi and Ezen were full of praise. "They are such good children, eating all their veggies. Bedtime on time every night." Driving through Lagos traffic felt familiar and comforting. The honks, the Okadas, the hawkers selling phone chargers at red lights. As they turned into Lekki Phase 1 and approached the mansion gates, the sun set in a blaze of orange, just like the ones they had enjoyed in Dubai. But the first hint that something was different came before the car even stopped. Lined up along the front lawn, gleaming under the security lights, were 8 brand-new bicycles. Shiny, colorful, professional-grade models with training wheels for the younger ones, complete with baskets, bells, and fluttering streamers. Next to them stood 2 electric ride-on Jeeps, the size of small cars, with working headlights and faux leather seats. A large inflatable bounce house, still partially inflated, dominated one corner of the garden, its bright cartoon characters grinning widely. Chitty's brow furrowed. "Did we order those?" Adora stared, puzzled. "No, definitely not." The gates opened, and as the car rolled up the driveway, the front door burst open. 8 kids came running out in a chaotic wave, dressed not in their usual play clothes, but in brand-new designer outfits. The boys in miniature Nike tracksuits and glowing sneakers, the girls in frilly dresses with sequins that sparkled in the evening light. Each child clutched something expensive, a glowing tablet, a remote control drone, a talking doll with real hair. "Mummy, Daddy," they shouted, but the hugs felt rushed, almost distracted, as several kids immediately turned back toward the house. "Come see what Grandpa bought us." Chitty and Adora stepped out of the car slowly, exchanging confused glances. The children tugged them by the hands toward the living room, chattering excitedly. Look at my iPad. It has games. Grandma got me a robot that follows me. We went to the mall every day. Inside the house, the transformation was staggering. The once tidy living room looked like a high-end toy store had exploded. Boxes and wrapping paper were scattered everywhere. Remote control cars zoomed across the marble floor. A massive flat-screen TV, far larger than the modest one they owned, dominated the wall, paused on a cartoon channel. Shelves sagged under new gadgets, gaming consoles, VR headsets, stacks of video games, dollhouses with working lights, and a miniature kitchen set complete with battery-operated appliances. The playroom down the hall was even crazier. A full drum kit, electric keyboards, karaoke machines with microphones, and even a child-sized ATV parked indoors. The kitchen table was covered in half-eaten treats, packets of imported chocolates, crisps, fizzy drinks and flavors they had never allowed. A professional-grade ice cream maker sat on the counter beside tubs of fancy brands from Cold Stone. And in the middle of it all stood the grandparents, beaming proudly amid the chaos. Chief Emeka had Samtichukwu on his shoulders. Lady Ngozi was helping Adiz try on sparkly shoes. Dr. Obi filmed the scene on his phone. Ezen arranged yet another new outfit on Ifeoma. "Welcome home, my children." Chief Emeka boomed, striding forward to embrace Chidi. "Look how happy they are." Adaora's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at a pile of shopping bags in the corner, logos from luxury stores in Dubai, London, and even a few from the Palms Mall, overflowing with more clothes, shoes, and accessories. Chidi found his voice first, but it came out a bit shaky. "Daddy, Mummy, what is all this?" Lady Ngozi laughed lightly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Ah, Chidi, don't be upset. It's Christmas." The children were so good, so sweet. They asked for small things, and we couldn't say no. "But this is a lot," Chidi replied, glancing around at the overwhelming abundance. Adaora's heart raced. "You know we don't spoil them like this," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "They're not used to so much at once." "Oh, but they deserve it," Lady Ngozi insisted, waving a hand dismissively. "Look at their faces. They've been so good while you were away. Besides, we wanted to make this Christmas special." Chidi and Adora exchanged glances, a mix of gratitude and concern. They understood the grandparents' intentions, but this felt like a whole new level of indulgence. "Okay, but let's talk about boundaries," Chidi said, trying to keep the mood light. "We can't have them thinking every Christmas is like this." The kids, oblivious to the adult conversation, were already tearing into their gifts, squealing with delight. "Look, Mummy, look what I got." Ifeoma held up a shiny new doll, her eyes wide with excitement. Adora knelt down, her heart melting at the sight. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. What's her name?" "Her name is Lila," Ifeoma exclaimed, hugging the doll tightly. As the chaos unfolded around them, Chidi and Adora couldn't help but smile. It was a whirlwind of joy, laughter, and love. Dr. Obi nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "We took them shopping, just a few times, you know. They totally deserved it after being away from you for so long. I mean, who wouldn't want to spoil them a little, right?" Ezen chimed in, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "And we hired a chef for a few days. Like, proper meals straight from Abuja. You should have seen their faces when they tried jollof rice and pepper soup. They ate everything. I'm talking clean plates, no leftovers at all." The kids, sensing the shift in vibe, quieted down but still buzzed with excitement. Chikwudi tugged at Chidi's hand, practically bouncing on his toes. "Daddy, guess what? Grandpa said I can have screen time whenever I want now. Isn't that awesome?" His eyes were wide with glee, like he'd just discovered a treasure chest. Nkechi twirled in her new dress, the fabric swirling around her. "And Grandma bought me 10 new ones. I don't have to share anymore. Can you believe it?" She looked so proud, like she was the queen of her own little kingdom. Obina zoomed a drone way too close to the ceiling fan, clearly having the time of his life. "Look what I can do," he shouted, his laughter echoing through the room. The drone whirred and buzzed, a testament to the new gadgets that filled their home. Adora knelt down to Ifeoma's level, trying to keep her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "Sweetheart, where are your old toys? You know, the wooden blocks? The books we read together?" She felt a twinge of nostalgia, remembering the simple joys they used to share. Ifeoma shrugged, her expression nonchalant. "Grandpa said they're for babies. We have better ones now." Those words hit hard, like a punch to the gut. Chitty and Adora exchanged a long look. Shock quickly turned into a sinking feeling. In just 2 weeks, the disciplined, happy kids they'd raised, the ones who shared everything, played creatively with simple things, and went to bed without fuss, had changed. The house that used to echo with songs and stories now buzzed with electronic sounds and demands for more. It felt like they had stepped into a different world, one that was bright and flashy but somehow less meaningful. The grandparents, still smiling, seemed totally unaware of the storm brewing on their kids' faces. They were caught up in the excitement, missing the subtle shift in their grandchildren's behavior. Sit, sit, Chief Emeka urged, waving his hands like he was conducting an orchestra. We've got pounded yam and egusi waiting. Special recipe, you know? The children helped. His enthusiasm was infectious, but it felt misplaced amidst the growing tension. But as Chitty and Adora stepped deeper into their home, surrounded by the chaos of routines and values they had worked so hard to instill, the joy of their return faded away. They felt like strangers in their own house, a place that had once felt so warm and inviting. The holiday had brought them closer as a couple, but in their absence, the grandparents' love, so generous and unchecked, had quietly unraveled years of careful parenting. They had trusted their parents to maintain the values they had instilled, but it seemed that trust had been misplaced. Now, the real work of reclaiming their family was just beginning. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to get their kids back on track. Grandparents' confession. Chitty and Adora stood frozen in the doorway of their own living room, suitcases still in hand, as the full extent of the transformation sank in. The air smelled faintly of imported chocolate and new plastic, a far cry from the usual sense of Adeora's homemade meals and fresh garden herbs. The marble floor, once kept meticulously clean by the children's daily sweeping chores, was scattered with wrapping paper, toy packaging, and stray crisps crunched underfoot. The walls, previously adorned with the Octuplets' simple crayon drawings and Bible verse posters, now had temporary LED strip lights taped along the edges, pulsing softly in rainbow colors. The grandparents, sensing the shift in atmosphere, finally paused their celebrations. Chief Emeka set Samtachukwu down gently, his expression shifting from joy to concern. Lady Ngozi smoothed her geli, her smile faltering just a little as she took in the scene. Dr. Obi pocketed his phone, the distraction gone. Ezen busied herself straightening a stack of new storybooks, hardcover imports with embossed covers and pop-up pages, which seemed to mock the simplicity they once cherished. The kids, sensing the sudden shift in the atmosphere, quieted down. The drones stopped buzzing, and the tablets were lowered. 8 pairs of curious eyes darted between their parents and grandparents, as if they could feel the tension in the air. Adora found her voice first, though it came out softer than she'd hoped. Mummy, Daddy, Papa, Mama, can we chat in the dining room? Please. Her heart raced, knowing that this conversation was going to be tough. The elders exchanged glances, part sheepish, part defensive, and followed the couple through the archway. Chitty closed the sliding doors behind them, leaving the kids in the living room with the nannies, who had emerged wide-eyed from the kitchen. The dining table, usually set for family meals with placemats and a centerpiece of fresh flowers from the garden, was now covered in takeaway containers from fancy restaurants. Boxes of sushi, trays of shawarma, pizza slices congealing on designer paper plates. A half-eaten chocolate fountain sat in the center, its cascade slowed to a lazy drip. Chitty took a deep breath, trying to keep his tone calm. What happened here? Chief Emeka cleared his throat, settling into a chair like a man used to boardrooms. My son, my daughter, don't look so serious. We just wanted to give the kids a memorable Christmas. Lady Ngozi nodded eagerly. Exactly. You both work so hard and deprive yourselves of so much. We thought, while you were away, just a little spoiling. Nothing permanent. Dr. Obi adjusted his glasses. We took them to the Palms Mall 3, maybe 4 times. They were so well-behaved at first, pointing at things with such wonder. How could we say no? Ezen jumped in, her voice warm yet defensive. And the bicycles. Every kid needs a bike. We bought helmets too, safety first. And the bounce house was on sale. They played in it for hours every day. Adeora's hands trembled slightly as she gestured toward the living room. But the tablets? The gaming consoles? The clothes? Dozens of outfits when they have perfectly good ones upstairs? We asked you, specifically, to follow our rules. Limited sweets, no gadgets, bedtime at 8, shared toys, not individual excess. Chief Emiko waved a hand dismissively. Ah, Adora, these kids are our grandchildren, blood of billionaires. They should know what's available in the world. You keep them like village children, no offense, and we just wanted them to taste a little comfort. The word stung. Chitty felt heat rise in his chest. Daddy, with all due respect, we're raising them the way we believe is right. Not like village children, but like kids who will grow with character, gratitude, and discipline, not entitlement. Lady Ngozi interjected softly. We didn't mean to undermine you. It started small. A treat here, a toy there. But they are so charming. Those big eyes, those sweet voices saying, please, Grandma, or thank you, Grandpa. We just couldn't resist. Dr. Obi added. And honestly, we hired a private chef for a few days, someone from a 5-star hotel in Abuja. The kids ate things they'd never tried. Pasta, grilled salmon, fresh juices. They loved it. We thought, what's the harm in a little variety? Ezen smiled. We even took them to my showroom one day. The girls tried on pretty dresses, and the boys got smart native outfits. They felt like princes and princesses. You should have seen their faces. Chitty rubbed his temple, frustration bubbling. But now they're saying things like, I don't have to share anymore, and screen time whenever I want. That's not the kids we left. A long pause hung in the air. The grandparents looked at each other, realization dawning. Chief Emika sighed deeply. Maybe we went too far. Lady Ngozi's eyes misted. We only wanted to give them what we could. We thought, 2 weeks. It would be our special time. We didn't think it would change them so quickly. Dr. Obi nodded slowly. Kids are sponges. They absorb everything, good and bad. Ezen reached across the table, taking Adaora's hand. Forgive us, my daughter. We love them so much. Sometimes that love makes us foolish. Adaora's anger softened at the genuine remorse in her mother's eyes, but the hurt remained. We trusted you to respect our home, our rules. Now we have to undo all of this. It won't be easy. Chitty spoke quietly but firmly. We appreciate everything you've done. The time, the care, the love. Truly. But from now on, visits must follow our guidelines completely. No more surprises. No more overriding our decisions. The elders nodded, subdued. Chief Emika stood, placing a hand on Chitty's shoulder. You're right, my son. We overstepped. We will help fix it, whatever you need. But as the grandparents filed out to begin saying goodbyes to the kids, Chitty and Adora remained at the table, staring at the chocolate fountain and the scattered remnants of indulgence. The confession had come, loving, well-meaning, but devastating in its impact. The holiday had restored their marriage, but the home they returned to felt suddenly foreign. And the hardest part, reclaiming the hearts and habits of 8 bright, impressionable 6-year-olds, was still ahead. The painful shift. The grandparents left the next morning in the same shiny convoy they arrived in. But wow, the vibe was totally different from that joyful handover just 2 weeks earlier. Sure, there were hugs and promises of we'll visit soon, but you could feel the heaviness in the air. Chief Emika held Chitty's hand a bit longer than usual, murmuring, We're sorry, my son. Call us if you need help fixing this. Lady Ngozi slipped envelopes of cash into Adaora's palm. For whatever you decide to do with the extras, but Adora gently handed them back. Dr. Obi offered checkups for any overstimulation stress, and Ezen hugged each grandchild twice, whispering apologies only the kids could hear. As the gates closed behind the SUVs, the mansion fell into an eerie quiet. The kids stood in the driveway waving until the cars disappeared, then turned back toward the house with expectant faces, already asking, Can we play on the tablets now? When are Grandma and Grandpa coming back? Chitty and Adora exchanged a long, heavy look over the children's heads. The painful shift, the one they had dreaded but now couldn't ignore, was fully visible. It started small but cut deep. At breakfast the next day, Adora prepared their usual simple meal. Akamu with milk, mwamwa wrapped in leaves, and fresh oranges sliced into eighths. The kids sat at the long table, but instead of the usual chatter and gratitude, all she heard were complaints. This pap is too thick, Obina grumbled, pushing his bowl away. Where's the chocolate cereal Grandpa bought? Kechi asked, her lower lip jutting out like she was about to burst into tears. I want juice from the carton, not this watery Zobo, Kalechi added, his face scrunched up in distaste. Adaora's heart sank. These were the same kids who, just weeks ago, had eaten whatever was served with "thank you, mummy," and even asked for seconds. Now they were picking at their food, eyes darting toward the kitchen where the imported cereals and sugary drinks sat untouched in the pantry. It was like a punch to the gut, seeing how quickly their tastes had shifted. Lunch was even worse. Chitty grilled chicken in the garden just like they loved, served with jollof rice and veggies. But half the plates came back barely touched. "I'm not hungry," Yuchechi declared dramatically. "Grandma let us have ice cream before lunch sometimes." Chitty gently corrected her. "That was a special treat while we were away. Now we're back to our normal rules. Proper meals first." Yuchechi crossed her arms defiantly. "I liked Grandma's rules better." Those words hung in the air like a slap. Adora felt tears prick her eyes, but she busied herself clearing plates so the kids wouldn't see. It was heartbreaking, watching the kids choose the fleeting thrill of sugar over the warmth of home-cooked meals. Bedtime revealed the deepest wound. The old routine had been sacred: baths in rotation, pajamas, family devotion with songs and prayers, one story read aloud, lights out by 8 o'clock. Now, as Adora called bath time, the response was not the usual cheerful scramble, but groans and negotiations. "Do we have to?" Sampachukwu whined. "Grandpa let us stay up till 10 watching movies." "We're not tired," Adiz added, clutching her new tablet. "Can we play one more game?" Chitty knelt to their level, voice calm but firm. "No screens after dinner. That's the rule. Time for baths." But the resistance grew. Ifeoma, sweet, attached Ifeoma who used to cling to Adaora's legs, pushed away when her mother reached for her. "I want Grandma to bath Maine. She tells better stories." One by one, the kids echoed similar sentiments. "Grandpa's house is bigger. Grandma buys better toys. I miss when they were here." The preference was no longer subtle. It was spoken aloud, an innocent 6-year-old honesty that made it all the more heartbreaking. That night, after the kids were finally asleep, later than usual, after much coaxing and a few tears, Chitty and Adora sat on the veranda in the dark, just like they had the night they planned the holiday. But this time there was no excitement, only grief. "They don't want us," Adora whispered, her voice breaking. "They want what the grandparents gave them. The things. The freedom." Chitty pulled her close, his own throat tight. "It's not us they're rejecting. It's the boundaries. We knew this could happen. That wealth can spoil if not handled carefully." But seeing it, hearing it from their mouths. They sat in silence, listening to the distant hum of Lagos traffic and the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog. Adora wiped tears angrily. "We sacrificed everything to be there for them. Paused careers, lived simply, poured our lives into discipline and love. And in 14 days, Chitty nodded slowly. Grandparents' love is different. It's celebratory, not daily. They don't have to say no. They don't have to teach delayed gratification or sharing. They just give. But now our kids think that's normal. That love means getting everything you ask for." The next days confirmed the shift in small, painful ways. The beautiful wooden blocks and books, the toys that had sparked hours of imaginative play, gathered dust in a corner while the kids fought over who got the tablet next. The garden swing set stood empty. They preferred the bounce house that was still inflated in the side yard. When Adora suggested a storytelling session, only 2 kids joined her. The others begged to watch cartoons on the new massive TV. Even affection felt different. Hugs were quicker, bedtime kisses distracted. When Chitty tried to initiate their old devotion songs, the kids sang half-heartedly, asking instead for the funny videos Grandpa showed us. One afternoon, Adora found Nkechi and Ifeoma in the playroom, dressing their old cloth dolls in the fancy new outfits bought by Ezen. "These clothes are better," Nkechi said matter-of-factly when Adora asked about it. "The old ones were ugly." Adora retreated to the kitchen and cried quietly over the sink. It was hard to hear her children dismiss something she had cherished and nurtured. Chitty found her there. "We can fix this," he said, though his voice held the same doubt she felt. "We just have to be consistent. Patient." But the most painful moment came on the 3rd night home. As Adora tucked Adiz in, her youngest girl, the one who used to fall asleep only in her mother's arms, Adiz looked up with big, serious eyes and asked, "Mummy, when are Grandma and Grandpa coming back to live with us?" Adaora's heart cracked clean in two. She kissed Adiz's forehead, whispered, "Soon, my love." and fled to the hallway where she leaned against the wall, sobbing silently. The shift was complete. In 14 days of boundless indulgence, the kids had tasted a different kind of love, one wrapped in possessions and permissiveness, and now preferred it to the steady, structured love their parents had given them for 6 years. The holiday had healed Chitty and Adeora's marriage, but it had, unintentionally, created a rift between them and the 8 miracles they had sacrificed everything to raise. And the road to repair it would be long, deliberate, and painful for everyone. Reclaiming control. The morning after the grandparents' departure, Chitty and Adora woke early, long before the kids stirred. They sat at the kitchen table with strong tea and a notepad, faces drawn from a sleepless night of whispered conversations and quiet tears. The house felt different now, the silence no longer peaceful, but heavy with the echoes of complaints and preferences spoken aloud. They knew what had to be done. The spoiling had taken root quickly, faster than they could have imagined, but they were determined to pull it out before it spread further. Chitty looked at Adora, determination in his eyes. "We've got to set some boundaries, babe. It's not just about what they want. It's about teaching them what love really looks like, what it means to earn something, to wait for it, to appreciate it." Adora nodded, her heart racing at the thought. "You're right. We've let them get away with too much too quickly. They need to understand that love isn't just about the latest toys or treats. It's about connection, about shared experiences. We need to bring back our family traditions." They spent the morning brainstorming ways to reintroduce structure and joy into their home. They made a list of family activities they could do together: game nights, storytelling sessions, cooking meals as a family, and even outdoor adventures. The idea was to create a sense of togetherness that didn't rely on material things. By the time the kids woke up, Chitty and Adora were ready. They greeted their children with smiles, but there was a new energy in the air. "Okay, team, today's a new day," Chitty announced, clapping his hands together. "We're going to have a family fun day. No tablets, no screens, just us." The kids looked at him, a mix of confusion and excitement on their faces. "What are we doing?" Kechi asked, her curiosity piqued. Chitty took a deep breath, ready to kick things off. "We start today," he said, his voice a mix of determination and a hint of sadness from his kids' recent words. "No delays. Consistency is key." You could almost feel the weight of his resolve in the air. Adora nodded, scribbling notes. "We need to cut down on the excess. I mean, we can't just take away all the gifts at once. That would totally confuse them, right? But we can limit access. Everything new goes into storage for now. They'll earn time with special toys by behaving well." "Next," Chitty added, "it's all about routines. Meals, bedtimes, chores. No room for negotiation." He was serious about this, and it showed. "Right," Adora chimed in. "We also need to rebuild our connection. More family time, outings, storytelling, and screen-free play. We'll remind them why our way is so good." It was like a light bulb went off for both of them. They dubbed it Operation Reset, a gentle yet firm way to reclaim their home and hearts after 6 years of careful nurturing. It sounded intense, but they were determined to make it work. Phase 1 kicked off right after breakfast. Chitty gathered the kids in the living room, while Adora pulled out big plastic storage bins. With calm voices, they explained, "Mummy and Daddy are super happy you had fun with Grandma and Grandpa. They love you tons and gave you some amazing gifts. But now that we're back home, it's time to follow our family rules. Having too many toys makes it hard to appreciate any of them. So, the new stuff will go away for now. You'll still have your old favorites, the blocks, books, football, and dolls. And you can earn time with one special new toy each week by being kind and helpful." Of course, there were protests. "But Grandpa said the tablet is mine," Chikwudi argued, his eyes welling up. "Grandma promised I could keep all the dresses," Kechi wailed. Ifioma clutched her talking doll. "Don't take it away." Adora knelt down, hugging each of them. "We're not taking them forever. We're teaching you how to take care of what you have. When you show responsibility, like tidying your room, sharing, and finishing your meals, you'll get to choose one special toy for the weekend." It took hours. Tears flowed. A few tantrums broke out. Samtachukwu even threw himself on the floor when his drone went into a bin. But Chitty and Adora stayed steady. Calm voices, gentle reminders of the rules, and natural consequences, like an early bedtime for anyone who refused to help pack. By evening, the living room was tidy again. The playroom returned to its simpler state. and most of the new gadgets were tucked away in a guest room cupboard. The screens were the toughest battle. The big TV got covered with a sheet for repairs, they told the kids, and the tablets were put out of reach. Withdrawal was real, whining, bargaining, and sneaky attempts to find hidden devices. But the parents held firm. No screens except for one family movie night each week, chosen together. It was a tough sell, but they knew it was necessary. Meals improved slowly. The fancy cereals and sweets were donated to a church orphanage the following Sunday, with the kids helping pack the boxes as a lesson in giving. Breakfast went back to akamu and mwamwa, and lunch became veggie-rich soups. The first few days saw plates pushed away and complaints of, "I'm not hungry," but hunger eventually won. By the end of the first week, most were eating again without fuss, though Kalechi still occasionally asked for Grandpa's chocolate milk. Bedtime resistance lasted the longest. The kids, used to late nights and endless stories from doting grandparents, fought the 8 p.m. lights out fiercely. Adora and Chitty reinstated the full routine: baths with local black soap, pajamas, devotion with songs they sang together, and one chapter from a classic children's Bible storybook. The first nights were rocky, crying, calls for water, multiple trips to the bathroom. But by sticking with it, sitting patiently in the hallway, offering back rubs and quiet reassurance, they wore down the resistance. Within 10 days, the kids were asleep by 8:30 most nights, waking up refreshed instead of cranky. Chores doubled as a gentle consequence. Each child had age-appropriate tasks: sweeping their section of the veranda, watering plants, folding laundry, and setting the table. At first, there were complaints. "Grandma didn't make us do this." But praise and small rewards, like extra story time or choosing the dinner vegetable, turned things around. Soon, pride returned. "Look, Mummy, I swept all the leaves myself." The most important part was rebuilding that connection. Every evening after dinner, screens stayed off, and the family gathered for together time. They played board games with old puzzles, built elaborate block cities, and acted out folktales with costumes from the dress-up box Adora had sewn years ago. Weekends became sacred outings: no malls, no toy stores. Instead, they had picnics at Lekki Conservation Center watching monkeys, beach days at Elagushi with buckets and spades, and visits to the local market where the kids helped pick fresh tomatoes and learned to greet vendors in Yoruba. One Sunday, they drove to a village outside Lagos to visit Chitty's extended family, playing with cousins in the compound and eating pounded yam under mango trees. Chitty and Adora poured in affection intentionally. Individual bedtime blessings naming something each child did well that day. Surprise notes tucked into lunch boxes: "Obina, I love your helpful heart," and extra cuddles during story time. They openly modeled gratitude, thanking God in prayers for simple things like rain for the garden or a good night's sleep. Slowly, painfully slowly at first, the grumbling faded. The kids began choosing blocks over requests for tablets. They ate vegetables without bargaining. They shared the single football again without fights. One evening, Ifeoma climbed into Adaora's lap unprompted and whispered, "I missed you when you were in Dubai. I like when you tell stories better than the TV." Another night, Chukwudi helped Samta Chukwu tie his shoes without being asked and proudly said, "We're a team, right, Daddy?" The preference for grandparents lingered in small ways, occasional questions about when they'll come back with presents, but it softened. The kids started seeking their parents first for comfort, stories, and play. It took nearly 3 months of unwavering consistency, patience, and love. There were setbacks: a slip back into whining after a short, carefully supervised grandparent visit, a secret attempt to retrieve a hidden toy. But each was met with calm correction and extra connection. By the time the Harmattan winds returned, blowing cool dust through Lagos, the house felt like theirs again. The kids played creatively for hours with simple toys, ate with appetite and gratitude, slept soundly, and greeted mornings with hugs instead of demands. The rift had been deep but not permanent. Chitty and Adora had reclaimed control, not through harshness, but through presence, boundaries, and the quiet power of daily love. In the process, they learned a tough truth. The greatest danger of wealth wasn't just having it, but how easily it could overshadow the values they cherished. The Octuplets were still young. The lesson would need reinforcing for years. But the foundation, cracked but not broken, had been repaired. Stronger, perhaps, for having been tested. A new balance. The months after Operation Reset weren't easy, but they were transformative. Chitty and Adora approached rebuilding their family with the same careful intention they had for every stage of parenthood: prayerful, patient, and united. They knew the damage from 2 weeks of unchecked indulgence couldn't be undone overnight, but they also knew that love, consistently applied, had the power to heal even the deepest cracks. As they moved forward, Chitty and Adora made it a point to reflect on their journey. They realized that parenting isn't just about setting rules, it's about building relationships. They started to have regular family meetings where everyone could share their feelings and ideas. This gave the kids a voice, making them feel valued and heard. They also embraced flexibility. Life with octuplets is unpredictable, and they learned to roll with the punches. Some days, they'd have spontaneous dance parties in the living room, while other days were perfect for quiet reading sessions. They discovered that blending structure with spontaneity brought joy to their home. Chitty and Adora began to incorporate lessons about gratitude and giving back into their daily lives. They'd set aside time to volunteer as a family, teaching the kids the importance of kindness and empathy. Whether it was helping at a local shelter or organizing a neighborhood cleanup, they found that these experiences brought them closer together and enriched their family bond. And let's not forget about the fun. They made it a tradition to celebrate Family Fun Fridays, where they'd try new activities together, like cooking new recipes, exploring local parks, or even having themed movie nights. These moments became cherished memories, full of laughter and connection. As they navigated through the ups and downs of family life, Chitty and Adora also recognized the importance of self-care. They started taking time for themselves, whether it was enjoying a quiet cup of tea in the morning or spring rolled into Lagos, bringing that classic mix of rain and sunshine that we all know and love. You could just feel the energy in the air. Mango trees were bursting with juicy fruit, and the sweet scent of blooming alamanda filled every corner. It felt like the mansion in Lekki was finally coming alive again. The bounce house. Oh, that went to a local orphanage, spreading joy where it was needed most. The extra bicycles? Handed down to cousins in the village, because sharing is caring, right? And those gadgets? Well, they were locked away, only to be released as special rewards. Definitely not too often, though. The kids' daily complaints faded from loud tantrums to just the occasional grumble, and eventually, they just accepted things as they were. But Chitty and Adora knew that acceptance wasn't enough. They wanted to bring back what had been lost, not just routines, but real joy. You know, the kind of joy that bubbles up from within, not just from screens or shiny packages. So, they decided to focus on being present, really present. Weekends transformed into adventure days. Every Saturday, come rain or shine, the whole family piled into the highest bus for outings that didn't cost much, but filled their hearts to the brim. One week, they hit Tarkwa Bay. Imagine ferry rides across the sparkling lagoon, picnics under swaying palm trees, and building sandcastles that turned into elaborate kingdoms with 8 pairs of tiny hands. It was pure magic. Another weekend, they found themselves at Freedom Park in central Lagos, where the kids ran wild through old prison grounds that had been turned into lush green spaces. They soaked up bits of history from plaques while chasing butterflies, their laughter echoing through the air. They even made a trip to the Nike Art Gallery, eyes wide with wonder at towering sculptures and vibrant textiles. And guess what? They tried their hand at tie-dye projects at home with kits from Balagan Market, turning their living room into a colorful art studio. Sundays after church often meant village visits to Chitty's family near Onitsha or Adaora's in Imo State whenever they could manage it. The kids played with cousins in red earth compounds, fetched water from boreholes, munched on fresh palm fruit right off the trees, and listened to elders share stories under the moonlight. These trips grounded them, reminding everyone that life could be rich without wealth, that family was bigger than one house, and that joy came from connection, not possessions. At home, evenings became all about togetherness. Screens stayed off, and instead, the long table became a hub for board games. Ao, Ludo, Scrabble Jr., laughter filling the air as alliances formed and dissolved. Adora revived storytelling nights, spinning Anansi tales with modern twists or acting out Bible stories with the kids as characters. Chitty, with a twinkle in his eye, taught them traditional Igbo songs on a small wooden flute he carved himself. Their voices blended in harmony, warming the whole house and creating memories that would last a lifetime. They even started a gratitude circle at dinner, where everyone shared one thing they were thankful for that day. At first, the answers were simple. I'm thankful for rice. But soon, the kids dug deeper. I'm thankful Obina shared his crayon with me. I'm thankful Daddy fixed the swing. I'm thankful Mummy sang to me when I had a bad dream. It was beautiful to see them express their feelings and recognize the little things that brought them joy. Affection started to flow back in waves. The kids sought out laps again, asking for individual bedtime blessings and running to their parents first with scraped knees or exciting news from school. Ifioma, who used to be vocal about preferring grandma, now fell asleep each night clutching Adaora's hand through the cot bars. Chikwudi, the bold one, began helping Chitty with small repairs around the house without even being asked, beaming with pride when praised. The grandparents weren't left out of this new rhythm. They were woven into the fabric of family life. Visits were planned, not spontaneous. Rules were laid out clearly. No gifts without parental approval, no overriding routines, and no mall trips without discussion. The elders, realizing the near rift they had caused, complied surprisingly well. Chief Emeka brought wooden puzzles he carved during quiet evenings, while Lady Ngozi taught the girls simple embroidery. Dr. Obi shared medical adventure stories that educated without gadgets, and Ezen cooked with Adora and the kids, passing down cherished recipes instead of just buying clothes. One memorable Sunday, all four grandparents joined a family beach picnic at Elagushi. Picture this: blankets spread out, coolers filled with homemade chin-chin and zobo, kids building sandcastles while the elders shared stories from their own childhoods. No shopping bags, no screens, just pure presence. The children soaked it all in, and Chitty and Adora watched with full hearts, knowing they had shifted the balance towards something healthier. The kids' preference for grandparent indulgence faded almost completely. Occasional questions like, "When will Grandpa bring the big TV back?" were met with gentle reminders. "We have everything we need right here." Slowly, the kids started to agree, realizing that the moments spent together were far more valuable than any gadget. By the time the Octuplets turned 7, the storm had passed. The mansion buzzed once more with imaginative play, shared toys, and the easy rhythm of a family rooted in values deeper than wealth. The kids proudly spoke of our rules and our adventures, inviting classmates over to show off the garden swing set and block cities, not hidden gadgets. It was heartwarming to see how they embraced their new reality. One quiet evening, as Chitty and Adora sat on the veranda watching the kids chase fireflies in the dusk, Adora rested her head on his shoulder. "We almost lost them," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Chitty kissed her temple. "But we didn't, because we fought for them, the right way." He said it with such conviction, and it made Adora smile. "And for us," she added, feeling the weight of their journey together. He nodded, his expression softening. "Especially for us." They both knew how important it was to nurture their relationship as well, and they made sure to carve out time for each other amidst the chaos of family life. In the years that followed, the story of the Christmas when the grandparents spoiled everything became family lore, told with laughter around dinner tables, a cautionary tale wrapped in love. The Octuplets grew into teenagers and young adults who understood wealth's place. A tool, not a master. They excelled in school, volunteered at orphanages, saved allowances for meaningful goals, and cherished family above possessions. It was amazing to see how they blossomed, carrying forward the values instilled in them. Chitty and Adora got back to their careers in time. Chitty consulting on major projects, Adora building a small accounting firm, but never at the cost of being present. They took family holidays every year, sometimes simple, sometimes a bit grander, but always together. Whether it was a quick getaway to a nearby beach or a road trip to explore new places, they made sure to create memories that would last a lifetime. And when grandchildren eventually came, years later, from the Octuplets themselves, Chitty and Adora became the grandparents who brought stories, wisdom, and boundaries. Not things. They had learned, through fire and grace, that true wealth wasn't measured in billions inherited or spent, but in bonds nurtured, character built, and love given freely, day by day, choice by choice. In the vibrant, unpredictable heartbeat of Lagos, the Okonkwo family stood as a quiet testament. that even miracles as great as 8 could be raised with humility. They had found a balance that worked for them, a blend of tradition and modernity, of love and discipline, that shaped their lives in the most beautiful way. And that love, when balanced with wisdom, could weather any storm. Thanks for sticking around. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing tales. Your support means the world.